Hello guys, welcome back again to my channel. If you are new here, I am Ify and you're welcome to Ify Gist TV. And to my old and returning subscribers, thank you guys so much for being here. Please do well to subscribe. That is, if you are new, do well to subscribe, and you can also like this video and leave your comment in the comment section. We are going to talk about Nigerian renowned prophet or apostle. You can call her prophet or you can call her apostle. She goes by the two names. Apostle Hellen Elijah Ukpabio. This is Nigerian pastor, apostle, or prophet, as the case may be, that resides in Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. This lady was popular. She was notorious for detecting witches in kids, especially. Like, she knows which children is possessed with evil spirits and the children that are witches. That is, she can detect witchcraft in children. Mrs. Hellen Ukpabio was born in Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. She is in her early 50s. A lot of things that this woman has done in Nigeria happened just few years ago. It has not been too long. She is the head, or should I say the GO of Liberty Evangelical Ministries. So it is a church. Starting a church in Nigeria is not that hard. So Miss Hellen Ukpabio started the church in her 20s. The ministry began to grow, and this woman began to prophesy. She began to detect witches and wizards in people's homes. Nigerians, you guys know that there is a lot of problems in Nigeria. So when you, as a Nigerian, you carry your matter to her church, prophet, my business is not moving well. I do not have, nothing is going on for me. Please, can you come through for me? Can you pray for me and tell me what is wrong so that I can go and solve the problem, so that I will start living my life again? I used to import containers, but now nothing is going on again. My container sank in the sea, in the high sea, and I cannot retrieve it. The customs seized my container. Please, how do I solve this? Can you help me and pray for me, prophet? Please pray for me, prophet. After you explain all this and many of your problems to her, this woman will tell you that she will come to your house, or she will tell you to come to the church with your entire family. And then you come, she will tell you that one of your child, maybe she was praying and the child was not paying attention, and Mrs. Hellen will go like, this child is a witch. She's the one that is responsible for your misfortune. She is the one that is making you not to progress. Since you give birth to her, she has been a stumbling block to your growth. You need to get rid of this child if you want to progress. If you want your goods to be released, you need to do away with this child. If you want to start importing your containers the way you used to, you need to do away with this child. The pastor will pray for the man and pray for the family and tell them, oh yeah, go back home and take care of this child. Do away with this child. And in some cases, she will tell them that you have to drop the child here, so that they will flog the child, and then they will bring cane and flog the child. Yeah, flog the baby, and baby will be screaming, "Daddy, help me! Daddy, please, Daddy!" And this woman will be flogging the child in front of the parents. And after that, the parents want freedom. They want to be free from their burden. They want the kind of life that they used to. They want total freedom. So they allow the prophet, that is the pastor, Hellen, to flog the child. After 1 week or 2 weeks, and the problem is not solved, and you come back again, the woman will tell you to do away with the child, that the child has sworn in the covenant that they were going to deal with you. And the parents go home and they will become angry at their child. After all, her prophet and the messenger of God has spoken, and she has revealed to them what the problem is. What they do next is that they take the child. Sometimes they take the child, lock the child up, they put the child in chains and leave the child there. Some people go as far as unaliving their child just to be free from whatever was troubling them. This was going on for so many years. In some cases where a woman loses her life in the process of bringing a child into the world, maybe out of frustration, the man will go and meet Pastor Hellen to ask for what was wrong, what made his wife not to survive. And Mrs. Hellen Ukpabio will tell the man that the child that your wife was bringing into the world was an evil child, that it was the child that is responsible for your wife's death. And if you're not careful, the child is also going to take your life. So you have to act now to get rid of the child. So the man will become scared. Oh, I don't want to die like my wife. I don't want to lose my life just because I want to have a child. No, I cannot do this. And then the man will give up the child, leave the child on the streets, or the man will totally reject the child and swear not to have anything to do with the child. So the family members, that is the family members that are fearless, the ones that say, okay, let me just take in this child, whatever consequences, I'm ready to bear it. They are rare to find in families. I have encountered someone like that when I was working back then. This woman, her brother gave birth, her brother's wife gave birth, and she died in the process. So the man rejected the child. It was this lady that raised that child, and at the time that I met that lady, the child had grown to, I think, 5, 6 years then. So the lady was just telling me the story. So this man would just totally reject the child. If your child is stubborn, you know there are children that are stubborn, believing that prayers will do wonders in the life of the child. So they will take the child to their pastor or their prophet, Helen. When they get there, the prophet will tell them that your child is stubborn because your child is possessed. Your child is stubborn because there is evil spirit in the life of your child. Now, look at what we are going to do. We are going to flog the child. We are going to stab the child so that the spirit of stubbornness will leave the child. So the parents, they don't have any other option. They have tried other options, they do not have. So what their prophet said is ultimately the best because the prophet cannot deceive them. They go ahead with what the prophet said.
This is Hellen Ukpabio. Calling herself Lady Apostle, she heads the Liberty Foundation Gospel Ministries in Nigeria, and she believes that she can save her country from witchcraft. But instead of denouncing other women as witches, Helen and her church are largely responsible for the recent wave of witch hysteria that has broken out all across West Africa, which has resulted in thousands of children to be starved, beaten, brutalized, tortured.
In the process, some children do not survive it. Some do survive it, but the scar stays forever. There are lots of cases of white women. They pick such children, those children whose parents abandoned because Mrs. Hellen Ukpabio said that the children were witches or that the children had evil spirits in them. They will abandon them in the streets. They will shame them and leave them hungry and starved for days, sometimes weeks, and the kids will be there suffering, waiting for death to come and take them. Sometimes those European women find them. There is this popular one on your screen. This popular one was the case that went viral. This woman was the one that took most of those children, according to those people that live in Akwa Ibom State. Whenever you see the woman, she moved with a lot of kids. Those kids were not biologically hers. Those kids were kids whose parents abandoned. Kids whose parents left on the streets to die, to suffer, just because Pastor Hellen Ukpabio said they were witches and they do not deserve to live. So the parents abandoned them in the streets, the parents chained them, put their legs and their hands with chains. And these white women took it upon themselves to save those children. They go from street to street in Akwa Ibom State looking for such kids to save them. And when they meet such kids, they pick them up, they clothe them, they give them food, they give them medical care, they take care of them, they send them to school when they recover. Mrs. Hellen Ukpabio also called teenagers that put on trousers, she called them evil spirits, she called them all sorts of derogatory names. And she said that it's a result of evil spirits that brought that the parents should flog them. Sometimes she offered to flog the kids herself, and the parents will leave their teenager child with Mrs. Hellen, and they go home and come back later to come and pick their child. So this has been going on for so many years. It has been going on for decades. Mrs. Hellen Ukpabio also filmed videos, like films, home movies, where children are branded witches, where toys, children's toys are branded, are said to be witches, that these toys are what possessed some kids. At a time, she became so popular. The cases of abused children became so popular that it garnered more audience. At the time when social media arrived in Nigeria, so there was an outrage, and that outrage attracted international bodies and human rights groups. That was how UK blacklisted Mrs. Hellen Ukpabio. They blacklisted her and they denied her visa and they banned her from the UK. The woman is still banned from the UK up to this moment. Why am I bringing up this story? The reason I'm bringing up this story is that recently, just a few days ago, the daughter of Mrs. Hellen Ukpabio was on X, formerly Twitter. I was even surprised that the ministry was still going, like the Liberty Ministry is still on as I'm talking to you guys. Just that more people have opened their eyes, more people have learned and unlearned a lot of things. Recently, the woman was posted on social media on X. It was her 54th birthday, and a lot of Nigerians brought up the atrocities that she committed against children, the abuses and the psychological trauma she caused for a lot of kids. Most of these kids have grown up now. Someone brought it up and the person said that this woman should never be celebrated, that if it was to be in a sane country, the woman should be behind bars because she has committed a lot of atrocities against kids that she needs to pay for her crime. And that was how a lady quoted the tweet and threatened the person that made the claim. That is, the lady that quoted it is Mrs. Ukpabio, Hellen's daughter. The very daughter of the woman that branded kids witches and wizards. The very daughter of the woman who is responsible for starving kids. The very woman that is responsible for a lot of the atrocities that have been committed against kids. The lady that quoted it with had to reply Mrs. Hellen's daughter, and that was when it garnered audience and a lot of Nigerians paid attention. That was when the real victims, that is victims, people who were part of those kids that were flogged back then, people who were part of those kids that were starved, that were brutalized, that were chained, people who were some of those kids that were done so many abominable things just because Mrs. Hellen Ukpabio branded them witches. Many of them had to descend on Hellen Ukpabio's daughter, and it went viral. The more viral it gets, the more people see it and also speak their own experiences, what are either their own experiences or the experiences of people they know or their siblings. No one knows she was Mrs. Ukpabio's daughter until she decided to quote the tweet. People discovered that Prophet Evangelist Ukpabio's daughter, the very woman that branded people, kids and teenagers who wear trousers, that is pants, this trouser, who wear them, she branded them witches and wizards and evil spirit possessed. Her daughter, all her social media, the daughter was partying. Her daughter had been in the club. Most of the club videos that she posts on her social media handles, she wears skimpy dresses. She dresses exactly the way that the mother branded other people, that was exactly how this girl dresses. I'm going to post some pictures on it for you guys. Guys, this is how Mrs. Ukpabio's daughter dresses now. She put on the pants. Most of her dresses are trousers. She put on bomb shorts. She put on makeup, like she wear makeup, she wear hairs. Putting on hair or putting on makeup was one of the things that Mrs. Ukpabio said that it can only be worn by people who are possessed with evil spirits. So, does it mean that Mrs. Ukpabio's daughter has been possessed by the evil spirits? And what has Mrs. Ukpabio done to the daughter? Because if she had given the daughter the treatment that she made other parents, other ignorant parents, give their kids back then, I'm not sure that the daughter would still be doing all of these things, like putting all of these things on. Or is it that Mrs. Ukpabio has changed her stance since then? Does it mean that she has changed? It's no longer the Spirit of God that spoke to her then? So who is speaking to her now? What made Mrs. Ukpabio change her stand? If it was the Spirit of God and God that told her those things that she told other parents back then, does it mean that the Spirit of God is no longer in her now? And what must she have done to make the Spirit of God disappear from her? And as parents, We should know better. We should know better. I am speaking to Africans because most of these things can only be heard in Africa. It can only be done in Africa. I do not think there is any other continent where these sort of things are allowed. It can only be done in Africa. Branding kids, wishes, and brutalizing them is the most cruel things I've heard. And no one who participated in such thing, no one who engineered such thing should be left to be free. The person should be behind bars for the atrocities committed. Do you know what it means? Some of these people are still living with the trauma. The kids whose parents abandoned, all of them now, like most, the ones that those Oyibo people were found, those ones now are being raised by the Oyibo. Many of them have grown. If you see themselves, you will not even know their story. Do you know how much life Mrs. Ukpabio destroyed? Do you know how much life she ruined? Do you know how many families she ruined their life just because she wants to gain popularity, she wants to make money? Because I do not believe that anyone that has the Spirit of God in them will be this cruel. So I do not think that Mrs. Hellen had the Spirit of God in her when she was making those claims back then. Okay guys, what do you guys think? I would love to know your opinion. What do you guys think? And do you know anyone that has experienced that had the experience with Mrs. Ukpabio? Tell me your experience if you are directly involved, or if you are not and you know someone that's had an experience. Can you share some of those experiences in the comment section? Thank you guys so much, and I cannot wait to see you all in the next video. Bye.